There we are. Hi, everyone.
Hello,
Hello to our friends. We have some special guests here today. Welcome to Diverse Voices, dedicated to sharing leadership stories with viewers. Hi, LinkedIn. Hi, YouTube. We have two special guests you can see sharing the screen with me today. Irene Brank, transgender insights coach and mom of the well-known Samantha Lux, YouTube personality with 580,000 viewers currently on YouTube. We're going to raise that number today a little bit, but listen, a little plug doesn't hurt. That's what I've learned.
Absolutely not. I am here for it.
Well, I am super excited to have both of you here today. We're going to be talking a little bit for our visitors about how do you help an employee who's transitioning at work. I think we'll start to unpackage a little bit the power of stories, get some advice from our two wonderful guests for our young people, and just see where we can take this conversation. I think that a good place to start is really talking a little bit about maybe history and looking at how's the reception of people who identify as transgender at work changed over time?
Yeah. So I think that's almost a two-part answer, Michael. So my first answer is, has it? My second answer is, will it? So I think the acceptance of trans people is changing in pockets, right? And that's why we do the work we do, to ensure that more and more people are exposed to trans people and the misconceptions of trans people, some of which are in the news today. You know, we have hundreds of bills against trans youth today, some of which are from our memory, right, that we saw on television growing up. And really our job is to change that kind of misperception of who trans people are by doing the work we do. It hasn't changed enough. It changes every day. Will it get better? I hope so. So that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I think that as things are, excuse me, I think that as things are progressing though, you know, it does become a lot more divided as people see that trans people are becoming more accepted. Of course, when people don't like trans people, they become a lot more defensive as well. So I think it's like an uphill battle, if you will. You're fighting to get there, but then, you know, it just gets harder and harder as you go. So.
Those are excellent points. I think it's also those little moments where people know people that really can impact and affect change. I mean, I think we saw that in the last 20 years with some changes in LGBTQ, IA+, and the idea that we all know someone in this community. Not speaking to the three of us on screen right now, but there are so many people who've now discovered they have a friend or a family member or a coworker who is part of this beautiful, diverse, alphabetic community. Mm-hmm. And I'm really curious, because both of you approach this perhaps from different ways. Which is more effective in opening minds and hearts, the statistics or the personal stories?
Do you mind if I start?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Yeah, so typically if we're going into a corporation to start the dialogue, I would generally start, and I always, as a prolific storyteller, start with the story. We believe the magic in that is that I am relatable. I'm a mom. You know, everyone has a mom, wants to be a mom, has someone in their life that acts as their mom. So I'm pretty relatable. It is difficult, particularly if you don't know someone who's trans, to relate to a trans person. It's difficult for even me to understand what my daughter's life is like. So we always start with the story, right? And almost show a pictorial story of Sam as a little baby bouncing baby, right? All the way through her most current media shots. So we do start with the story, and then we'll move to Samantha, who steps in at some point during our conversation.
Yeah, so I'll usually take over once that she has gotten their attention, once she's gotten their their heart hooked, and I will, give out the statistics that, make people gasp. 47% of the trans community think about attempting suicide or successfully do commit suicide. 97% of trans people are harassed in the workplace. And, these numbers, they're very, very shocking, but I think that they are just that much more powerful when you already have your heart set on supporting the community. So that's why I think that, having the mixture of the statistics and the storytelling is, one of the most powerful ways to do it.
Yeah, we've literally had people stand up and say that can't be true data. And we're like, we're really sorry, but it is, right? And actually it's probably low data because not everyone who's trans is stepping in and reporting.
Sure, and it's easy to discount the data, but when you share and wrap it within a story or join it to a story, it has resonance, it has meaning, it adds physicality to it. And you're showing your story, and I think a lot of people can relate to one side or the other of it, if not both.
Yeah,
right.
Makes it hit home a little bit harder.
Yeah, so both of you spend time in different ways sharing with communities, and I know you through some of your keynote work, going into organizations, sharing. So what ends up being the biggest obstacle in educating those organizations?
Yeah, so for most organizations, and we really work, this is somewhat of an uphill battle, most of the time we are being invited in by a pride organization within an organization. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a business resource group, an employee resource group, an affinity group, that's how we're being invited in. And that's not necessarily, but sometimes, the people who really need to hear us, right? So we do spend some time when first engaging with organizations to talk about how are you going to make sure that you're getting this deeper into the organization and wider into the organization. Can you get an executive sponsor to open the meeting? So things like that really open it to that broader community who probably need to hear it a little bit more. I think that's the magic, is making sure that it's not the people who already know the story that are listening to it. And then, what's really important as well is education takes time, right? We talked about perceptions. We talked about representation. So it takes time. And as a woman who is not patient, for me, that's an obstacle. I wish I could shout it from the rooftops and tell the 100 million people in corporate America all at the same time. But we kind of hang our head on, if one person tells one person, we'll move the needle in the right direction. And corporations can make that faster. Yeah.
I want you to know we've got a little bit of fanning going on here, just from the stories that you're sharing. And I want to revisit, if I can, just a point that I think you bubbled up on the topic of talking to corporations. And it comes from this viewer who is sharing a little bit about the idea of planning. You mentioned, Irene, like if I could go into 100,000 corporations and have the conversation all at once. And also talked a little bit about going beyond the people in the room who know this stuff and talking to people who really don't know things. Is there an easy way for organizations to start to map out a plan? Like what could the framework of that plan look like or focus on to make sure that this common sense information is coming across and we can affect hearts and minds?
Yeah, I think that's important. And the comment that's up on the screen right now is actually one of my answers to a question. So super smart. I think some of the corporations that we've been most successful in are doing series of diversity dialogues, as we are doing today, right? And they are doing that in a very intersectional way. Right. So one organization we're speaking at actually in November because of COVID, they are marrying their women's BRG and their Pride BRG. right? Some are marrying parents, BRGs, which is new to me. So some are really making sure that they're very intersectional and very thoughtful about who they're inviting. And then there's the super corporations who they invite everybody, right? So that diversity, that dialogue, that provocative conversation they want to have is coming from very senior leadership. And it's to everybody. And it may be a different topic every month, but it's topics that make you think differently, and maybe look at the world a little bit differently. So the higher up you can get that sponsor, the better off you are from a corporate perspective. And make it a dialogue, right? That's for everybody in some way or another.
That is such great advice. And I love that you're looking at, in essence, the leaders themselves, but there's so many ways in which we saw, especially in the last year and a half, activism showing up in different ways. Grassroots, I think, is a very meaningful and popular one to affect a lot of people on the ground. And I think that speaks to activism. And Samantha, I'd like to just ask you, what's the most fulfilling part of your activism, of finding your voice and sharing your voice?
I mean, there's a lot of very, very rewarding things. I would say like there are three main ones that I really, really enjoy seeing. So first of all, is obviously like young trans people, young LGBTQ people that, you know, are struggling to find somebody like them to look up to or to, you know, find community in. And then they say that they found me and they feel better about themselves, or they feel like they aren't so alone. That, of course, feels amazing to me. Also, the parents that come on my channel, I have a lot of parents that watch my stuff. They say like, oh, my kid just came out as trans and I don't know what to do. I've never, you know, met a trans person, anything like that. But watching your videos has really helped me see trans people for who they really are instead of what the media is, you know, telling us they are. And then I think the third and the maybe like even the best one, honestly, is the comments from people that are admittedly, you know, used to be explicitly transphobic and just say like, I used to follow the Ben Shapiro's of the world, the people that are actively fighting against the trans community. And they say, oh, well, your video popped up on my YouTube suggested and I watched it and you've really changed my mind on a lot of these things. You know, I just didn't have the exposure to a lot of this information and I can see it in a truly different light now. So yeah, I think the combination of the three is super, super fulfilling. And that's what keeps me going, if you will.
Oh yeah. And that's really fantastic. The elements of exposure is, I think, to your point, something that can be very powerful. Everyone is on a learning journey of some kind, and there are going to be people on the spectrum who come from a transphobic point of view, and even moving them into friendlier territory is progress.
Right. Even that little bit of progress is progress.
I think that's fantastic. Are a lot of your fans, a lot of your viewers, Samantha, do you find them to be younger and just entering the workforce?
Yeah, my target demographic, or the demographic that I see the most on my channel, is actually right around my own age. So like 18 to 24 to like early 30s is the people that watch my channel the most. So yeah, actually right around the people that are going to be going out and you know, looking for jobs in corporate America. So
that's really great. I think that there's you've got another fan who's stepping in and just affecting your impact.
Hi, Lilia.
A little shout out from one of your admirers. I am really curious though, Samantha, because you're talking so often to people who are in that 18 to 24 range, who may have just exited high school and are entering the workforce to some degree. Do you have some advice for young people who identify as trans entering the workforce for the first time?
That's a good question.
If you don't, I do.
All right, well, you can start it off and then I'll tell you what I come up with. No,
so Irene, same question to you. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'll start, right? So this is really, really important to me. One, I am a lifelong mentor of young people. I'm probably a baby boomer in a millennial body, right? So I love working with young people. So this is my advice. Do your homework, right? You do not want to work for a company that doesn't want you there. right? You can go out and try and change the world company by company, but you want to work where you're welcome. So do your homework. It's very easy to find out, are these companies truly inclusive or are they not, right? Everyone can hang a flag in Pride Month. It doesn't mean they're inclusive, so do your homework. Secondly, be you, right? Walk in as you, right? Don't try and pretend. We've done that for years and years, right? We try to talk like a certain way. We dress a certain way. We can't do that if we want true belonging in an organization. So be you. Find support, right? So find a business resource group, find an employee resource group, create one if you have to, but find your peeps, if you will, when you get there. And then last but not least, use your voice, right? That's important, but don't sign up to be the voice, right? It's not your job. Use your voice, but don't sign up to be the voice. So that's my advice to young people. Yeah. What do you think?
I think, I agree with everything that you said. I think that the only thing that I might add is, if you have friends that are already out in the workplace, other friends that are trans or in the community, wherever, I think just seeing their perspective and seeing where they have found belonging in certain companies can be super beneficial as well. So, seeing somebody from the inside, they have their own perspective already. I think that can be a good idea.
Yeah, that inclusion, I think, goes a long way. There is a question coming from, it came in a long form. I'll put it on screen, but the basic gist of this is really asking about what do you recommend for leaders to become comfortable about the subject? So I'm going to take a step back on this. And I think that there's the opportunity to really look at and I'm going to go wide, but for a lot of straight white men, this can be uncomfortable conversation and territory, and they don't feel safe even broaching it. So they can take a step back and be cautious, and therefore not find the strength to take the first step. So Irene, what would you recommend for leaders so they can be comfortable on the subject at all?
Yeah. Educate, right? So reach out to Saterman Connect and bring us in, right? So you need to educate yourself to be able to lead others, right? This is not something that we grow up knowing about. I didn't know what the T was 7 years ago. Didn't know what the T was. So educate yourself first. And then make sure that you are taking the right steps to educate your organizations. And there was a comment, I have to say it because it would have been my last comment. Don't do it when you have to, right? Because it's already too late, right? So when my daughter came to me and said, I'm trans, I had to do the Google, and I had to watch things, and I had to read, and I had to find people. And it's very lonely as a parent and as a trans person. So from a leadership perspective, all the way up to the top and all the way through your HR organizations, your D&I organizations, the best advice I could give you is don't wait. Because one, you're not going to hire the employees of the future. And two, there are employees who are parents that are walking among you, and you're probably saying the wrong things, right? You're not correcting pronouns. You're not using right pronouns. So my best advice is you've got to get ahead of it by educating yourself and your organizations in a very, very proactive way.
That's so powerful. Guiding leaders to be trans friendly and not waiting to act, I think, is a fantastic way for them to look at it and setting the foundation for a safe space for everyone. Right. We are getting just a lot of appreciation from many people. And I think people are hearing you talk about these amazing tips. And I would love to know, and maybe this can be a question for both of you, is there something you might say, and it's Samantha, you've had people come to you through the comments on your YouTube channel. Irene, you've had people come to you in those moments before, after, or during keynote speeches. what might you say to a parent or a grandparent or a loved one who's struggling with a person who's transitioning in their life?
Yeah, I'll start if that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, love them, right? When you had them, when your kid, however they came into your life, there were no ifs, right? So when I had children, I didn't say, I will love you if you look like me, if you're smart, if you don't have diabetes, right? I will love you only if you're a boy because I want a boy. We don't have ifs. So love your kid, right? That's the easiest. I'll let you do this one because it's your famous one. So I'll leave that one for you, right? The second piece is don't go it alone. It is very, very lonely to be the caregiver for a trans kid, because it's really hard to find other parents that are like you. Find other parents that are like you, right? If you were to Google, you would probably find me, and you can call me, right? I talk to parents that I will never meet, right? Because they have somehow found me either through corporate keynotes or on Facebook or on LinkedIn. Somehow they find me, or through friends I have who then say, friends have friends have friends. So don't go it alone if you can avoid that. There's always PFLAG and organizations like that to start that conversation. And then educate yourself, right? Read, watch Barbara Walters, watch as much as you can, absorb as much as you can, and keep an open mind.
Yeah. And then my favorite tip, as my mom said, is especially coming from a parental point of view, or like, as you said, like a grandparent or something like that, it's super, super important that you allow the trans individual to take the lead. So what that means to me is if, your kid comes out and says, I think I'm transgender, I think I need to go to a gender therapist, then I think as a parent, it would be the best for you to just be like, okay, if that's what you think that you need, then we'll find you a gender therapist. And it goes both ways. I feel like sometimes parents can have like a good intention and be like, oh, you're trans. Okay, well, we'll sign you up for hormones. We'll sign you up for surgery. We'll sign you up for everything. Like, we'll get it done right now. And that may not even be like the best route for the kid. So, when I say take the lead, I really do mean just allow the trans individual to say what is right for them and define their own path of transition.
Yeah. And remember, there are little ones who can't express this, right? So Sam didn't have the words for being trans, neither did I, which is why Sam came out at 17. There was no representation, no words, no way to find people like her, right? So I think it's really important to recognize that most trans people, not all, everything is always most, not all with any population, right, will look back and say, I knew at 3, right? 3 or 4. Same time I knew that I was a girl, right? So if your child is leading, it was assigned female at birth and is leading you to trucks and G.I. Joes in the toy store, follow them. Let them buy a truck. If your child assigned male at birth wants to wear a princess dress, let them wear a princess dress and wait until you see their face, right? So even at very young ages, kids are coming out younger and younger, take their lead with their clothing, with their hairstyles, let them be who they are.
And I think that's not even just for trans people. I think that just being an accepting and a loving parent comes with, letting your kid become who they are going to be. Even if they're just a boy that likes to wear makeup and dresses, then I think that as a parent, it's great to support them in that.
Yeah, expression is important, right? And not all expression means you're trans, right?
Sure.
It means I'm a boy and I like makeup, right? Or I'm a boy and I like carrying a purse. Okay, carry a purse.
Yeah, I think that is brilliant advice. Samantha, I really appreciate that you brought it beyond transgender expression and issues, and it really comes to parenting. So if a father loves football, they don't have to impart that love of football on their son or their daughter. They can let their son or daughter love cooking or basketball or something entirely different. And that's the beauty of them finding themselves.
Right.
And that's hard as a parent, because if I love football, I really want my son to love football, right? It's hard, but you've got to, like Sam said, let them take the lead.
Yeah, there's so much to this. I like to want to pay one more visit to the comments and see if there's any final questions that we might have. Again, more fans telling you your advice really resonates with them, that people should allow that trans person to take the lead. You know, they're in many ways going through a door that once it's in your head, it's in your head, but once it's out of your mouth, it's out there in the world. And that can be the hardest step for any type of change to share with a loved one.
Yeah.
So just really curious. I like to finish off maybe just asking if there's one big tip that you can give to anyone in any circumstance around what we've talked about today. What's an action that they can take today to make themselves a better ally?
So I'll start from an ally perspective. There's so much. So in a workplace, some really easy tips. Put your pronouns in your email address. Use your pronouns as often as possible. You can see them in our names today. I'm Irene. I use she, her pronouns. What are yours? It's not hard, right? So use your pronouns, put them in your email signatures, be bold, have conversations, have dialogue that's maybe uncomfortable. There is not one person I meet that I don't end with, by the way, I have a trans daughter. You want to hear more about her? And you should subscribe to her channel, right? So, you know, sometimes those of us who do have voices, right, and not everybody does, really need to use them. And like you said, grassroots at my own company, I put my pronouns in my signature years before the company kind of not supported it, because they always supported it, but I didn't ask for permission. I just put them in there because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And then, of course, use the right pronouns. It's harassment if you don't. Practice your they, thems, because they are the hardest pronouns to use. When you make a mistake, move on, right? He, she, right? We don't need a dissertation. And don't correct yourself only when the trans person is in the room, right? Correct yourself whether they are or not, because that's how others learn.
Right. That was the tip that I was going to do. How dare you steal it? How
That's
dare
pretty
you?
good.
That was a good one.
Great
Yeah.
minds.
Samantha,
Yeah.
no, we'll give you the space, Samantha. What is your one tip to make people a better ally?
I think that, especially coming from a cisgender perspective, I think one of the most powerful things you can do is correct other cisgender people or educate other cisgender people when a trans person isn't around. So if, you know, you're talking to a cisgender friend of yours and they're like, oh, did you hear that Samantha transition? Now she's a girl, and or now he's going by a girl and all this stuff. You don't want to be like, yeah, like, I know. You just want to be like, actually, like, it's she. We need to, you know, just, it's she's a girl, blah, blah, blah. Even if it's not that type of conversation, it's just really important to, you know, support people even behind closed doors, because if you just do it in front of their face and it kind of translates to that cisgender person, that is just to make them feel better, and it's not actually who they are.
Right. And remember, you're only an ally if someone calls you an ally when you're not in the room. That's the true definition of an ally.
That is so powerful. And it's those moments where you have the one-on-one and there's opportunities to correct someone else's behavior because it's a private space. So if they misspeak or don't know, as an ally, there are opportunities for you to help others when that representation is not there. You are the representative in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There are more allies than there are trans people, so we have a job.
Yeah. Well, since we have a job, I'd love to know if you could solve one problem, what would it be?
So today, right, and the problem is different every single day. So today, media is a problem, right? So lack of media on the side that supports trans people, making sure that trans people on television are played by trans people. So representation in the media really matters, which is why what Sam does is so important. But making sure that the other side of the media doesn't get in your way right? So think about the 80 to 100 to 200 bills out there that are really going after not only trans children, but parents who are supporting their trans children from a medical perspective, and doctors who are. Listen, you know, when we support our children from age 4, 5, 6, we are not cutting things off, right? And that's what the media would want you to think, right? We're cutting things off. We're having surgery at 4, and that's child abuse, right? Child abuse is not treating gender dysphoria, which for most trans people, there is an underlying diagnosis. The only treatment is transition, right? So listening to the media and really paying attention to what is reality and what really is not. And Sam does a lot of this in commentary on her channel, so she says it much better than I do. But that media, we really have to get our arms around, particularly this year. It's been very, very, there's been a lot of it. So make sure you're really paying attention and making good decisions around what you hear and see.
Yeah. If I were to fix any problem, I think it would be to fix obviously the healthcare problems with all the bills going around to criminalize healthcare for trans minors. You know, trans people are still being murdered all the time and nothing comes from it. There's a lot of problems out there, but baby steps, I guess, right?
Listen, progress does come in small actions and small steps. And I want to thank you both for your advocacy, your voice. I mean, for those of you who don't yet follow Samantha Lux on YouTube, I encourage you to do that today. My favorite moment was watching some of your earlier videos, maybe from about a year or two ago, and seeing you find your voice and just in such a way that brings so many of your viewers along on your journey and helps them to gain a stronger voice in challenging those who just don't understand and helping them to understand. So thank you for that.
And you just can't not love this kid. I'm just telling you. We're so proud, in case you didn't notice, we are extremely proud of our daughter and what she's doing.
We know that love comes through every moment of every day. I want to thank you both again for joining me today in this conversation. Thank you to everyone who reached out with some commentaries and questions and some love. And we'll be seeing you again next week. Irene and Samantha, thank you. Thank you so much. And happy Pride.
Yes,
happy Pride. Thank you,
right.
Michael. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.